Hey guys, if you really like this episode, please support our podcast by going to talkmurder.com/join and becoming a Talko Supremo. Come on, kids, sit around this here fire and don't be shy. I need to tell you one story you must hear before you die. It's a story of love, true love, for a man devoted to his wife until that fateful day when those Indians take away her life. But this story gets much better, so please don't despair, because this man swears vengeance and starts collecting scalps and hair. Name's liver-eating Johnston, tall as a tree and strong as a bear, and he won't stop until he's eaten his share. Alrighty, guys, welcome to Talk Murder to Me podcast. That is a Game of Thrones Western cover right there for you. Coming from Ben Dan Productions. You can find that cover there on YouTube. And I got a fantastic story for you guys. Obviously, we're going out west. We're doing some Western stuff tonight. And that's enough talking for me, so why don't we just get right on to it, shall we?
Welcome to Talk Murder to Me. It is now officially Turkey Month.
My favorite holiday.
For those of you who are sad that Halloween has passed, we are too, but it's time for Thanksgiving. And I just want to put a PSA out there that Thanksgiving is still a holiday.
Absolutely. Yes.
Everyone wants to skip right to Christmas.
I know. It's tempting.
It is. Don't get me wrong. I love Christmas, but Thanksgiving deserves its time to shine as well.
I will say for Halloween, I watched more horror movies this year than I think ever before.
Yeah, I think I'm less affected by horror movies after doing the podcast for as long as we've been doing it.
Yeah, that's true. We are drinking liver transplants.
It tastes like a Swedish fish.
Yeah, it does. So we didn't have a lot of the ingredients that were in the recipe, so I improvised. We had some, but then it called for peach, but we only had peach mint, stuff like that. So it's vodka, rum, peach mint whiskey, which is what we had, raspberry liqueur, almond syrup, or argot, and then some Deep Eddy's orange vodka because it called for some pineapple juice and orange juice, which we didn't have. So it was just more booze. So it was liver transplant because the hint was it sparrow liver? Is that what you said?
Crow liver.
Crow liver. Well, it was either using crow or liver. I don't know if they make a crow liver cocktail, but...
Surprise shots. Surprise shots. We don't know what they are because they're a surprise. Oh, yeah. Ugh. Deep Eddy orange.
Ugh.
It was. And that bottle was courtesy of Will Lake. Will Lake.
Oh, Will.
Our resident author.
Yes, and if you guys don't know, John narrated his book.
That's me.
And it is on Audible right now.
It's called Horoscope. The book is on Audible. It's by one of our big supporters, Will Lake. He's an author. This is his first novel, and it's fantastic. And I was honored when he asked me to narrate it for him. So that is on Audible. Be sure to go and download it today. Horoscope by Will Lake, narrated by me. I think you guys are really going to like this story. It's definitely different from what you're thinking about when I say the word cannibal.
No Jeffrey Dahmer?
No, it's not Jeffrey Dahmer.
Have you guys ever noticed that Hannibal rhymes with cannibal?
Yeah, they call him Hannibal the Cannibal.
Yeah.
That's his name.
Yes, I have noticed.
Oh.
I think that's why they named him that.
Yeah, that's why they named him that.
That's where the character got his name. Yeah, all right, Jen. She's caught up now. Okay.
Nicole, where are we going? Who are we killing tonight? The hint is crow liver. Wait.
Anyway, I think we're going in the northern states this time. I'm not going to say Wisconsin because that's where Jeffrey Dahmer's from. Right? I don't know. I only know about Jeffrey Dahmer from the bits and pieces that we've talked about him. So I'm going to say Vermont. We're going to Vermont this evening. I have no idea. I'm making this up on the fly. So in Vermont, there is a crow who is found eating human remains after someone else has already murdered and eaten at it.
So the crow is getting sloppy seconds.
Yes. Yes. And they find further human remains in the crow's liver. I don't know. Do they dissect the crow? I haven't gotten that far in my mind.
Food doesn't go into your liver.
Yeah, that's blood goes into your liver. Food goes into your stomach.
All right. Well,
That's okay. Good try. She's a geography expert, not an anatomy.
Science was never my best subject.
All right, Jim, where are we going?
I'm stuck between two states.
Literally? Which two states?
Texas and Alaska.
Holy shit, that's one extreme to the next.
Yeah.
Well, I don't think there's crows in Alaska.
Yes, there are.
I don't know.
Well, I'm going to go with Texas because that's where
That's where your heart is?
all my
Deep
exes.
in the heart of Texas.
All my exes live in Texas. Like I'm George Strait. And my guess was similar to Nicole's, where I had the thought that maybe a crow may be circling around a dead body. But now I'm thinking that someone is in the wild and they live off of crows and eat their livers, and they find that digested in the person.
That's a good guess.
And tonight's second shot is brought to you by Nippatati Gin. Heyo!
2 shots in and half a drink in. Let's get started. Tonight we had a bunch of people that wanted cannibalism. They're like, John, do us a gruesome story like you always do. I'm just the gruesome whore, apparently.
And I'm the drunk whore.
Blood and guts, then they call me. Well, you know what? Not tonight. All right? Not tonight. How I got this story situated, we're going to go through the characters in a little bit, but right now, just try to follow along.
Can I ask one question?
We hadn't even started yet.
I know. It doesn't have to do with the story itself. Did a fan request this story, or did you pick this one out?
I picked this one out.
Okay.
But this is about cannibalism.
Okay, just curious. Thank you.
All right, tonight we are talking about a man, John Johnston. We are going to Wyoming.
Damn.
We're going to the Rocky Mountains.
The way you looked at me, I was like, "Oh my God, is it Vermont?" Got so excited.
No, we're going to the Rocky Mountains. So around Wyoming and all those places right there. Mostly
North.
Wyoming, though.
North. I got that part right.
Well, not really.
Not really. I know. Just let me have my small victory.
All right, so
See how it feels, Nicole?
we are going to 1847 tonight.
Oh.
Now, this is
We
the
haven't done
guy.
an old story in a while, except for our live show.
This is the guy we're talking about right here. I'm just going to show you quick pictures of him. Go to talkmore.com to see the pictures.
Wait, is this the thing that is like a thing that people talk about?
What?
Is it a Donner Party?
I have no idea what you're talking about.
What? Is that Davy Crockett?
Yes.
Daniel Boone?
Yes. Very good. It's neither of those. That's John Johnston.
Oh.
Oh.
You've never heard of this story. Nobody's listening to this right now has heard of this story. I can promise you that.
Oh, I thought this was like the thing that spawned all cannibal stories. The Donner Parties, is that not a thing?
All right.
I thought that
So
was Dahmer.
describe this guy.
Donner.
Nicole, describe this guy for our listeners.
He's an old man with a long white beard and a wide-rimmed hat. He's got a vest on, jeans, and he's holding a rifle.
He's a grizzly man who's wearing a wolf on his head. Or is that a raccoon?
I think it's a wolf. No, a fox? A wolf.
No, it's a wolf, and then he has 2 raccoon hair earrings, 2 raccoon tail earrings.
I think it's part of the hat. He's a Native American headdress with a big dagger.
It's not. That's not a Native American headdress. Native American headdress, don't they have feathers?
But like,
I'm not trying to be. I'm not trying to be insensitive. I'm just seriously asking.
But look at it. I was getting that context from the rest of his outfit. What he saw was the powerful build of a 6-footer, some 190 pounds in weight. He had apparently not full grown, a young fellow about 20 years of age. Extraordinarily long arms hung from his thick, broad shoulders. His hair was bright auburn, worn at half length, his face full and strong with a stubble of red beard.
Now you know what the guy looks like we're talking about right now. We're going to get into this a little bit, and then I'm going to go back and explain everything, so just stay with me. All right, this is 1847. This guy, John Johnston, he marries a flathead.
What's a flathead?
Does anybody want to take a guess what a flathead is?
Someone from Asia.
I believe those would be flat eyes. I can't believe I just said that.
A flathead is a part of the Indian tribe, the Flathead Indians. There's several Indian tribes around this area, many in Wyoming at this time. Nicole, tell us about this thing that happened in 1803. Our third place geography bee can tell us what happened in 1803. Go ahead.
In Wyoming? The gold rush. No, Manifest Destiny.
What? That's way off.
Manifest Destiny.
1803, Nicole, our third place geography bee. Come on, you got it. What did America do?
Lewis and Clark.
Yeah, close.
Manifest Destiny.
Off the back of that.
Trail of Tears.
What happened before Lewis and Clark? Why did Lewis and Clark go and explore all this new land?
Because they were purchasing it from the Native Americans, the United States.
We didn't purchase anything from the Native Americans.
We took it. Manifest Destiny.
Oh my God! No,
they took ownership.
We bought. All right, there's this thing called a Louisiana Purchase.
Oh, yeah.
Shoot. That's what I was trying to talk about.
Louisiana. Where are we going?
Wyoming was part of it, though.
Where we bought.
No, it was not.
Yes, it was. We bought literally half of the continental USA with the Louisiana Purchase because it was all just barren, unexplored land. That is where I'm trying to tell you this story takes place tonight. We didn't buy shit from the Indians, but what that did was put Lewis and Clark and all these other people to go exploring the U.S., okay? That is where these mountain men come in, like John Johnston, what we're talking about tonight. Anyway, I'm getting off on a tangent. Let's get back to the story, and then we'll get back to that. All right. This is 1847. He marries a wife.
I thought you said it was 1803.
No. 1803 is the Louisiana Purchase.
Oh, got it.
1847, he marries into the Indian tribe, the Flatheads.
Oh.
Now, this is a fantastic fucking story, and I'm so excited I'm doing this for you. He marries into this Indian tribe, the Flathead. I'm going to show you a picture of the Flathead Indians right now.
Kind of reminds me of like a Dances with Wolves type story, you know?
What you're seeing now is a picture of the Flathead Indians. The reason they're called the Flathead Indians is because you see their skull? They have an elongated skull. So what they do, you see this picture right here? Uh-huh. When you're born into this Indian tribe, they put a large rock on your head and it forms...
Shifts your bones conform to that.
Yeah,
kind of like how they bind feet in China.
And get that long neck in the
in that African country.
You're born into this tribe. They put a large rock on your head as an infant, and it molds your head into this unique shape for your scalp, like here, where it's kind of elongated, looks alien. So
I just thought that was a genetic thing.
No, it's just like in Asia where they pin the legs
feet
together, and they're so small and stumpy. That was probably racist, but this is very subtle. Wow. He marries into this tribe, but
they allowed that.
That's a very good question. They did allow that, and the final price was 1 rifle, 2 knives, and 1 supply of salt and sugar. They actually bargained for 3 days.
Quite the dowry.
Most Indian tribes didn't like to marry their daughters, if you will, outside the tribe because, for example, the Frenchies, okay, literally who we bought the Louisiana Purchase from, were very mean, if you will. They mistreated the Indian wives when they would marry into them. They would beat them. They'd stick them in the kitchen, all this stuff. But this was different.
Make me a sandwich, woman.
This was an American trapper, which we'll get into what a trapper is, and the Indians really respected him, which we'll talk about in a little bit.
So when you say like he married into the tribe, but they had to bargain for the for the wife.
daughter. Yeah.
So was he accepted by them? Did he live with them, or was it like, okay, I have my wife now, I'm gonna go by?
Well, yes, he had his own life and his own job, so he took the wife with him. But he did learn the Flathead language, which sounds a little bit like this. He married, her name was the Swan. That was her name. Actually, when I was in the military, I met one Native American, true Native American. His name was Bear's Feet, and like on his uniform, it said Bear's Feet.
Cool.
Kind of cool.
Oh, he was in the
Yeah, he
army.
was Native American, but his name was Bear's Feet.
Wow, that's really cool.
cool.
I wonder
Yeah.
what percentage of our armed forces are Native Americans.
I would
Very small.
imagine.
Yeah, that's what I was
very
thinking.
few.
Like, don't they kind of do their own thing mostly?
we are. I am
It's
part
mostly-
Eskimo.
It's mostly
Really?
gang members in the army. Anyway,
Really?
oh yeah, a lot of gang members.
What?
Yeah, there's a lot of gang members because they go and they learn the tactics and all this stuff. And
No
then
way.
They do, I promise you. Anyway, the Swan, she was called the Swan because her head was normal. She wasn't subjected to the whole rock on the head and forming the skull back. She was just a normal, person. That's why they called her the Swan.
So was she like the chief's daughter, or was she just a
I believe she was the sub-chief's daughter, which later became the chief, which we'll get into in a second.
This is very reminiscent of Pocahontas.
Yes. I was
Okay, anyway,
gonna
let's get to killing somebody. I mean, let's get on with this.
I know it's too romantic.
Can
so far.
you change with all the colors?
Now,
of the... I don't know how that
he
song
takes
goes
the
anymore.
Swan back with him to Wyoming, where he stays around because he's a trapper. He traps beavers
Animals.
and grizzly bears, the Grizz, what they call it. He builds her
Reminds
a
me
cabin.
of the book The Revenant. I haven't seen the movie yet, but
This is the cabin that John Johnston was staying in before his death. So this most likely looked like the cabin that he built for his wife, the Swan. Go to talkmore.com to see it.
Wow, that's still around today.
Yeah, it's like a memorial thing
Wow.
for him.
that's not bad. I mean, I would live there.
Yeah,
The thing
I'd do
about this
that.
story, I mean, who do you think about when you hear Wild Wild West type of?
Will Smith.
Well, no, not that, but like these
Yes.
mountain
Wild, Wild
men. Like,
West.
who do you think of? You think of David Bowie? You think of
No.
or David Bowie? Fucking shit. You think of Davy Crockett? You think of those other guys? Buffalo Bill, even.
The Brawny Man.
Yeah.
Yeah, the guy from the toilet
Lewis
paper.
and Clark.
Lewis and Clark, all those people. So,
Daniel Boone.
Daniel Boone, that's what I was thinking of.
Johnny Appleseed.
Wait, which one was Daniel Boone?
He was the one that wore the raccoon hat.
They all wore raccoon hats.
I thought that was Davy Crockett. Yeah.
Yeah, they both did.
All right, let's get on with it. He builds her this cabin. It's not much, but
That's a
it's
good
pretty
cabin.
good. He puts a lot of
Yeah.
work in it. And to show you how much he loved his wife, now they've only been married for about a year. He learns the Flathead language, which is not easy to do. And it's an anomaly because no other person that marries a Native American woman will take the time to learn the language. That just doesn't happen. So think about when he shows back up to the Flathead Reservation, he can converse with them in their own native language. And that's a huge plus. That's a huge brownie point right there, right?
Right.
All right. He stays with her, and his goal is to build her this cabin because in the wintertime, he has to go and work. He's got to provide for the family, and he does that by being a trapper. A trapper, as we'll talk about in a minute, they trap mostly beavers because in Europe at this time, the beaver hat, and it's so funny looking at these freaking, I dive in all these old newspapers and shit. And if you look at a certain time period, there's all these little ads in the newspaper about this beaver hat. Get this beaver hat.
It's like the one that's like a muff around the
it's
head.
a top hat, but it's made of beavers.
They were iconic. Yes.
Yeah, exactly.
Do you guys remember the show Angry Beavers? Talk about iconic.
And the
No.
the beaver hat was like a huge fad back then, like huge.
Oh,
I mean, it was
yeah.
crazy. So you had all these companies being built up just to do beaver hats. Literally, I mean, there was way too much demand and not enough supply. So these companies hired people like John Johnston to go into this new continental USA that's never been discovered because we've never been there. They hire them to capture all these beavers. Okay?
It's amazing how
It was a very dangerous job. By the way.
How end up capturing a different kind of beaver?
two beavers are better than one.
Are you asking if the carpet matches the pubes?
But isn't it amazing how like furs have gone so out of fashion, where having like a big fur coat used to be was so in style,
mink.
like even 30 years ago.
People used to wear like literal minks around their neck.
Yes, all of my aunts each have their own fur coats.
Oh, my
that
mom
was from
has
my
a
grandma.
few of them.
Yeah, beaver, mink. It's kind of crazy.
All right.
Foxtail.
John Johnston, which I'm going to call JJ from now on. I'm going to call JJ like Jimmy
I have a
Johnson.
friend named
I was
JJ.
just gonna say that.
I've had Jimmy John's in like 3 months.
The bullshit, Jen. You eat it like every time I see you, you're eating Jimmy John's.
Jimmy John's is
3 months, my ass.
I think
has been
Jimmy
pretty-
John's
Jen,
is the
every
best.
time I see you, you're eating Jimmy John's.
No.
It's not been 3 months.
Yes, it has.
I will say-
Bullshit. It's not been 3 months.
Yes, it has.
Pull out your bank card right now in your bank statement.
I think Jimmy John's is the best, but you keep talking about the Firehouse Thanksgiving sandwich that I need to try because I've only had Firehouse once.
I love Firehouse. They're so good. When they have a Thanksgiving sandwich now?
No,
I don't know.
she's talking about
You-
the cranberry
always use-
turkey that's
yeah.
always there. It's not Thanksgiving.
I'm sure it's a November specialty.
No, it's not a November special. I literally got it in July.
All right. Well,
right.
I need
I
to.
do love
I need to
Firehouse.
eat that.
The first
gauge
winter.
it.
All right, so JJ builds this cabin for the swan, and it's all comfortable for her just to live and be a good housewife, if you will, back then, and just to sustain herself while he's out running around the Rocky Mountains collecting beaver, getting all this, warm beaver, this tight beaver. You know what I'm saying?
Maybe
He's finding this
yes.
strange beaver.
getting strange.
So,
Maybe it hasn't been 3 months, but definitely I did not have any Jimmy John's in October.
all right, so the
love
cabin he
Jimmy
built
John's.
was tucked in. It was hidden well in the mountains, surrounded by streams and valleys. She can go down to the beaver lake. She can, if there's a beaver, maybe she can wash the beaver. Maybe she can get some fish. If she has a pet beaver, she can wash the beaver. Jen.
Does she pet her beaver?
Okay, too much beaver talk. Okay, now here, let's talk about getting murdered. All right.
Oh,
There's
yeah.
a group of young Braves. Now, Braves, I don't think that's a,
The Atlanta Braves.
yeah, kind of. I don't think that's really a racial term, but it wasn't saying Braves are a certain tribe of Indians. From my research, if you say brave, you're talking about an Indian, a Native
general?
American in general. So when I say a young brave, I'm talking about an Indian because just in
Native
Wyoming,
American.
where we're at right now, you have the Chinook, you have the Sioux, you have the Flatheads, you have
Cherokee?
the Crows. Huh?
Cherokee?
I don't know if the Cherokee was there. I didn't see them.
What
but
about
probably.
the
Anyway, so I'm just going to say Braves. But there was a group of young Braves. They were from the Crow Indians. This is another little tribe. Now, these tribes are always feuding with each other and stuff like that. So, and that's going to come into play. They actually come across this cabin. Now, this cabin is pretty well hidden in the mountains because John Johnston, did a really good job of kind of tucking it in there, right? But these are young whippersnappers, if you will. They're trying to impress the chief, so they're out on a mission to kind of ransack and do whatever. So any goods they find, they can bring back to the chief. All right. They dismounted their horses. Now, they're probably 100 meters away. I'm using meters again. They're probably 100 yards away, maybe 200. They have a good vantage point over the cabin. I want to say the Swan did have a rifle with her the whole time, and she would carry it when she goes out and in the house. But these young Braves have been watching her for quite some time, and she actually was outside on the porch of this cabin, and she goes inside at one point. Now, what she didn't know is these Crow Indians had already dismounted. They put on war paint, and they were creeping up on her. They were just waiting for her to leave her rifle, okay, because they had bow and arrows. They didn't have rifles. As soon as she goes inside and leaves her rifle behind, that's when they move in. There's 4 or 5 of these Crow Indians in this little group.
Now, did they know that she, like, because she didn't have a flat head, did they know that she was from a different tribe? Like, was she still, was she kind of Americanized? Was she still wearing her native dress? Or, like, did they maybe think that she was one of theirs and this American took her? Like,
that's a good question. I don't actually know if they knew or not, but they definitely would have looked for that because they don't want to start any feuds with tribes that it doesn't have to be there. They don't want to start shit just for some reason. But I will say the Crow Indians, around this time at least, were notorious for starting these wars and starting these fights.
So they were like the instigators?
They were the instigators, yeah.
Okay.
Now, there were 2 subsections of the Crows. I don't really want to go into that deep of the history, but the Crow Indian tribe did branch off. So these were technically the Western Crows. I'm just going to say Crows just to keep it simple. All right, they dismounted their horses. They applied the war paint. They wait until she's inside, and then they rush in. They surprise her. They do the worst thing you can think of. They rape her and everything else. They kill her. They ransack the whole place. They take everything inside besides a bronze kettle. That's the only thing they didn't take, probably because it was fucking heavy. At this time, JJ's not there. Remember, he's out trapping. He's out getting strange beaver. You know what I'm saying? So he's not even there. No.
Yes. Why do I want to call those head things a muff? No, that's a muff.
Muff.
The thing where you put your arms into. That's a muff.
All right, Muff. Why don't you read this for us?
Perhaps she saw the first freshly painted face from the moment it appeared around the corner of the cabin. Slow, pregnant, her work in her hand, she could neither escape nor fight off the warriors. Or perhaps she sensed the
Absaraka.
Oh, Absaraka. I'm sorry. Yeah. Well, I'll talk about that in a minute.
Or perhaps she sensed the Absaraka only as his tomahawk was raised above. Perhaps, her sensitive nostrils dilating, she barely started to rise. A war whoop rang out over the valley. A tomahawk thudded in the back of her neck. She fell sideways off the bench. Her killer took her scalp.
All right.
Oh, no.
All right. So we're reading tonight from The Crow Killer. I'll get into more of the book in a little bit. But it's a fantastic book. It's only 200 pages, but it takes fucking forever to read, as you'll see in a minute, because the language is so hard to understand. And
like
Jen's going to be reading a lot of it. All right. So usually at this point, the Indians would burn the cabin altogether. And they would steal everything. They would burn the cabin, leave no evidence type of thing. But they actually robbed the cabin, stole her pony, and 2 of her horses that she had at the cabin. They leave, they're long gone. They have her scalp. And I'm going to talk about how to scalp people in a little bit. It's fucking really weird. Have you ever seen Inglourious Bastards?
Yes.
Yeah, so it's basically that. I mean, it is
That's
that.
one of my all-time favorite movies.
Each and every man under my command owes me 100 Nazi scalps. And I want my scalps. And all y'all will get me 100 Nazi scalps, taken from the heads of 100 dead Nazis. Or you will die trying.
Have you ever scalped anyone?
I can't go into that, Jen.
The very end of Inglourious
shit.
Bastards is not when they scalp him, but when they
carve the
carve the swastika in the guy's forehead when he's on living in Nantucket. They all know.
All right, JJ actually returns home 2 weeks later. He, as we'll talk about in a little bit, is a very experienced, one of the best, and like I said, the best woodsman ever existed. Seriously.
Wait, who?
JJ.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
The old guy.
Johnston, yeah. So he gets about 200 yards away from the cabin. Now he's coming back with all his beaver. He got all this beaver. He's coming back, he's going to clean the beaver and all this stuff. And he's on his horse. He stops about 200 yards away, and instantly he knows something's wrong. Now, I don't know if
Such as?
You can probably smell it.
the smell, the silence, And then he looks even closer and he sees what eventually he knows for a fact is human bones on the porch of the cabin he built for the swan.
I like that he calls her the swan.
That's her name.
Wait, that's her first name?
Oh
That's
my
her.
God.
That's
We
her
went
Native
over this.
American
That's her name.
Oh, I thought that was just like her nickname.
No, that is her name.
Never mind. It's not as romantic.
Remember I
now.
said the guy in the army, his name was Bear's Feet? Like, that's his name.
I want to see. You know what I haven't seen? The black swan.
He actually saw a vulture
Thanks, John.
picking at the little bit of her scalp. Not scalp, but like, the skin around her forehead. That because they cut the scalp off. There's a little skin around her forehead of her skeleton. Now, she's like almost completely skeletonized. But he sees this little...
Because it's been so long since...
Yeah, I mean, out in the dry heat, and there's coons getting in it, and there's beavers, attacking her beaver and all this stuff. There's a lot of stuff going on with the elements. But there's this little vulture, like, picking at a little bit of the little that's left of the swan. At this point, he doesn't know it's the Indians. It could be anyone. It could be David Boone, or Davy Boone, or Davy Crockett. It could be that brawny guy from the toilet paper.
Any of them.
It could be anybody. But near his cabin, he picks up this long feather. It's a crow feather. And he knows instantly who's responsible for this murder. The murder of his wife, the swan. The one that he took the time to learn the language of her people. They killed her. Not only that, they scalped her. That's very disrespectful. He goes back inside. He grabs the one thing that these braves didn't steal, which is a large hinged kettle. It was still sitting there, large and heavy. He grabs the bones of his wife. And what I didn't mention, which he didn't know, there's actually 2 sets of bones.
But she was
there.
pregnant?
She was pregnant.
It said that in the thingy.
So he gathers up the bones of the swan and the little swan because she was pregnant and he didn't know that.
Don't look at me, swan.
He puts the swan into the kettle, okay? And then he rides off. Now, he also puts that crow feather in there. And when he goes up a few miles into the mountains and he finds this really tight crevice in the rocks, quote from the book Crow Killer, where neither wolf nor bear could molest it. Basically, like this little tight little crack in the rocks, and he puts it in there.
Keep it safe.
To keep it safe. Now, throughout the story, he's going to go back there and reminisce about his only wife, his only love. He never marries again. He never loves again. He gets beaver, but that's different. Now, at this point, he swears an oath of vengeance because he knows it's the crow. And he doesn't swear, I'm just going to find that one crow killer. He swears an oath of vengeance against the entire tribe.
Wow.
And that is some deep ass shit. Okay. Now, that's
on, motherfucker.
That's why I showed you the pictures of JJ earlier. That's why you read the description of JJ. He's tall, real tall, over 6 feet. He's brawny. He's
old.
What?
No, he wasn't.
He not at this point. Those are just old pictures of him.
Oh, okay. So
at this point, he's like 24.
Picture him, actual John Smith in the movie Pocahontas, not actual John Smith.
John Smith was like my favorite Disney character. When I went to Disney when I was like 5, we went on the riverboat cruise and Pocahontas and John Smith were there. And John Smith held my hand and he walked me to the boat. And it was the best.
That was Jen's first sexual awakening. It was in 1848 that the first news of Johnston's despoiling of the Crows spread through the West. Over vast territory where the white man's campfires were few, far from the Absaroka's own land, where indeed, wherever they hunted or traded Crow warriors' bodies, and only Crow warriors' bodies, were found mutilated in a special fashion. Not merely scalped, but cut beneath the ribs and the livers removed.
The liver's removed. All right, this story's hard to verify because it's in the 1840s.
Yeah, not any witnesses.
And these are
now.
mountain men. It's not like, the story we did in Charleston where there's a whole city. This is out west where it's literally unexplored. Do you know who we need to thank for exploring all these areas all the way to California? These trappers and these mountain men. Mm-hmm. If they didn't have the guts to do it, it would have never gotten done. Well, they were doing it for incentive because they were getting paid.
Yeah, but like
it's very dangerous.
Like they could have died any day.
And there was feuds with the Indians, and you were going out alone, and you come up to an Indian tribe, they'll kill you right on the spot. They were risking everything, and most of them died. So these guys were street, real street. You know what I'm saying? Is that a word?
Well,
like you don't want to fuck with these guys.
They didn't have streets back then, but like
that's
whatever.
what I'm saying. What I'm trying to say is this guy.
They were forest.
This guy put out his beef on the street. He said the Crow Indians.
It's like an episode of The Wire.
Dude, you guys don't understand. He swore this oath to kill all the Crow Indians, and he made it publicly known. And as what Nicole just read, you know how we verify this story? There's 2 ways we verify this story. Okay, and it's not newspapers because newspapers around this area didn't exist.
Word of mouth from Indians?
Not really, because you talk to the Crow Nation. The Crow Nation is still there. They don't have this story as part of their lexicon. They don't teach this story. This story isn't part of their history. I wonder why. Well, it's kind of embarrassing, as we'll get to. But how do you verify that this guy actually killed all these crows? Well, you have 2 ways. Number 1, as Nicole read, the dead, mutilated Crow Indian bodies spread all over the plains, okay? With that one signature thing, just like a serial killer today, he has that signature mark. The ribs are cut open, liver is taken out. One other thing, the most important thing to verify this guy's stories, the scalps. Every Crow Indian he's killed, he collected the scalps. Now, scalps back in the day would go for high prices in the market. People would buy scalps. This is strange today.
Wigs?
I'm talking about the scalp, the very circle of your head, and with an Indian, the long hair, maybe black hair, long. They would hang it in the barber shops. They'd hang it in the markets. It'd be like a sign of whatever, like a novelty item. The Indians would hang it on their teepees as like a, kind of a trophy. Scalps were a big business back then. And this story is verified by the enormous amount of scalps that he sold at the markets.
I have a question. Did he do this by himself, or did he enlist the help of the Flathead Indians?
That's a good question we'll get to in just a second. There were times when he was with other witnesses, which verified a lot of these accounts, because as a trapper, you may run into another trapper, and then you guys converse and maybe do a bonfire and get some beaver and drink some whiskey, and you talk about all these stories, and then a Crow Indian or whoever Indian would sneak up and you would kill him. Okay, that was one way that the witnesses told of John Johnston. Jen, Nicole, tell me how many people John Johnston has killed in his career. Now, he swore vengeance to the Crow Indian Nation. Now, keep in mind, he's a trapper, which we'll talk about in a second, but his job was to capture grizzly bear and beavers. His job wasn't to kill Crow Indians. So how many Indians did you think he killed in his lifetime?
23.
150.
On his deathbed, which we'll talk about in a little bit, in 1900 is when he died.
Okay.
He was really upset at himself because he didn't hit the 1,300 mark. He was at 1,299. But that is highly inflated numbers.
What?
Okay, that is just him bragging. I don't want to give credit to him for that. In fact, historians today only think he's killed between 300 and 400.
That is an awfully large margin of error, first of all.
300 to 400. He's killed.
3 singular. And 400
No,
300
to 400.
What?
They believe he's killed 300 to 400, somewhere in the probably like 370. By himself.
I'm going to the showcase.
All right.
Dun, 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 dun.
Now, it's really crazy that we don't hear about this guy, John Johnston, and we hear about all these other assholes, but this guy has such a unique quality because all these Crow Indians were found laying without their liver. And if you're a Crow Indian, the liver is what gets you to the afterlife, and he knows that. It's like the same thing when the whole thing with the SEALs came out and they threw
Osama
bin Laden over the sea because for a Muslim, you got to be buried. Okay, so if you're in the sea, you ain't getting to
your
that
soul
afterlife.
can never be at rest.
The same way with the Crow Indians. If you ain't got your liver, then you ain't getting up in there in heaven. Not only that, but tonight we are not only talking about John Johnston, because no one knows about John Johnston. But if you type in the name John Johnston, the first thing you'll see is...
I don't know what you want to see.
The first thing you'll see...
There's a lot of Johnsons and a lot of Beavers.
And a lot of Johns.
Google would ask, did you mean liver-eating Johnston?
Oh, really?
Because all of them livers, he ate. He ate all of them livers.
It's good fat, good protein.
And that's why a lot of the Indians were so afraid of this guy, because they thought the livers he was eating was making him fucking crazy and like superhuman, and he was killing all these Indians. So they actually called him a Dipiak Absaroka. I don't know if that sounds right or not, but that translates to crow killer. He is the crow killer. Okay, the Crow Indians, and he is their killer. Now let's talk a little bit about JJ. I'm just going to run through this. Quote from the book Crow Killer: pair of paws as big as a half bushel of mountain wheat. With one turn, he could twist off an Indian's neck. So much so, he had to use extreme care when he was hugging friends because he was so burly. When he would hug a friend, he'd rip them to shreds, right? Now, a thing about John Johnston is he did use a rifle, the Hawken rifle, but his main weapon was his foot. He loved to kick. Okay, that's how he would literally kill people.
Did he have like steel toe boots or something?
I love to kick,
all right,
stretch, and kick. I'm 50 years old.
Throughout his life, he was able to set up each opponent for the kill by the means of one powerful kick. He'd rather kick someone to death than anything. Some say that this enabled him to kill 2 Indians at the same time. And a lot of times he was going up against 4 or 5 Indians. He would set up these ambushes and he would basically pick off these Indians one by one. He never backed down. He never refused the challenge. All right, let me explain trappers right quick. Let me explain his job.
The mountain men were fatalists. An arrow accounted for one, a grizzly for another. One was killed in an idle brawl, another froze to death or starved beside his partner on the salt plains. A contemporary reports the outcome. One partner, the weaker, hands his knife to the other, saying, according to the survivor,
"Stick me between the ribs, O coon. It ain't no use for both of us to crash in. When he gets back to camp, tell Long John where my carcass be."
The crow killer strode to the feed lot where he had left his horse and where the owner had regaled the curious with traditional tales of that big black exploits. How he could walk guard while his master slept, how he hated Indians and could scent them afar, how no man but his master could approach within the kicking or biting distance of him. A crowd gathered to watch the powerful animal nuzzle of the red-bearded giant, then stand docile as the liver-eater saddled him and tied his purchases. Without glance around Johnston Mountain, placed the Hawkins across the saddle and rode away. The black noise pointed towards the west.
Wonder where
he goes.
Where you can bet there's crows, and he knows it. He's on a death trail.
What the fuck? What that translates to is wherever
your kid.
Where is he going?
Where's he going? He's on a death trail. I don't know. That book is hard as shit to read, dude.
He's about to go get killed.
When I picked up this book, I was like, sweet. It's only 200 pages. Because usually a true crime book is like 350 at least. I'm like, sweet. And then it took me
It's a short one.
It took me like twice as long to read it.
Google Translate.
All right, let's talk about the first crow kill. This is right after the event. About a couple weeks after. 50 Crow Indians.
You mean after his wife is killed?
Yeah, after the swan is dead. 50 Crow Indians ride out. Now, their goal is to trade a bunch of horses with the flatheads. Now, it's important to know the strategy, and is very much similar to the military strategy that I learned so well. You have a group of 50 Crow Indians traveling in a pack. That's your center mass right there. That's where that's your heart of your patrol, your convoy, if you will. So, in order to keep that convoy safe, you have to send out scouts, and that's is literally the job of a scout. 1 or 2 scouts goes out front, a couple miles up front, and kind of scans the area and makes sure the convoy is good enough to continue going and pass through whatever area. You also have a few scouts in the back. Now, that's how they traveled even back then, which is really interesting.
Would you rather be the first one, be the first scout, or would you rather be the last one in the back?
I mean, they're both really important. Any good military would have both because there could be an enemy sneaking back up on them.
Right, that's what I'm saying. If those are both essential and dangerous positions, so which one would you rather be, the first one or the last one where you have no one to cover your back?
I mean, I'd rather have the most actions of the first one, I guess. Fuck, I don't know.
First I was going to say the last one, but I would rather be the first one because I'd be more in control.
I'd rather be in the
you
middle.
see.
I wouldn't want to do either.
I'd probably just be texting
I'd probably
the
rather
whole
be
time.
the first one.
I'd probably be playing Angry Birds.
Words of friends. Oh, hey, man, do you know a 7-letter word that uses
How
these
can
letters?
I make this triple word score work here?
But, all right, so here's the thing I really want you guys to understand about this, about how insanely great of a woodsman he is. Because you don't just know the strategies like this, right? You don't know that Indians would have these scouts. But Johnston knew, and he was keeping an eye on the entire convoy. He was behind them, and the scouts behind the convoy didn't see JJ, but JJ saw them. And he would get into a vantage point where he would see everything because they were in the mountains, right? Mm-hmm. He was an incredible woodsman. Incredible. Which is crazy why you don't hear this story very often because this is a fantastic story.
Right.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? When you think of the American image, like the John Waynes and stuff like that.
Yeah.
You know, that image is manufactured from these mountain men because you have to be a badass to be a mountain man. That's where that image came from. That's why people in other countries see Americans as all these badasses and these, big burly guys because there's multiple times where he was literally fighting bears. You have to be burly as shit to do that. So these guys created the image of the burly American. It's kind of crazy to think about. Anyway.
And it's crazy how that image has persisted.
And it's all because of beaver hats. Literally. That's it. No, I'm serious. That's the reason why these guys were out there. For beaver hats. It's fucking crazy. It was like the Bitcoin of back then. It was like everything. It was so fucking popular.
Whatever happened to Bitcoin?
We lost our money. That's what it.
I wasn't talking about us in particular. I was talking about in general.
I don't fucking
Is
know.
it still going?
Yeah. Oh yeah. It's back up to 10,000.
To buy in?
$10,000. Yeah.
JJ spies on this entire camp. Now we're talking about the first crow kill. He's about to get his beaver wet. We're talking about
It's like her neck is, she just can't react. She's like, my neck.
Jen, we're talking about the first crow kill. Jen, we're talking about the first crow kill right here. He's seeing all these crows.
Oh,
now,
I thought you were going to say beavers.
Once they get in for the night, because they're traveling days and days and days, they're actually going to see the flatheads, which is kind of fucked up because those young whippersnappers done scalped the swan, which was a flathead. But they're going to see the flatheads because they trade horses and stuff like that.
Those two-time and backstabbing crows.
Well,
they're going to go act like they have never done anything against these flatheads so that they can trade with them.
The crows are notorious for being, like the bullies. They would start fights with everyone.
Right, the instigators.
Instigators. JJ followed them to the camp. He has a great vantage point, and they're all relaxing. And I don't want to bring this up, but it's really funny. During this time, the Americans, these woodsmen, introduced the Indian people to one of the most dangerous things ever that literally ruined the Indians.
Alcohol.
Alcohol.
Yeah.
They can't handle fucking alcohol at all.
I think it's what we were talking about earlier. Like, I think it's a legitimate allergic reaction.
It was illegal. And I've seen it in many newspaper articles that I was looking at. It was a felony to give an Indian any alcohol. A felony.
Because
because they can't fucking handle it.
well, was it because like they never had it until
we introduced it to them, and they didn't know how to deal with
any sort of alcohol.
Yeah, exactly. They didn't. They just fucking.
They
went
never
crazy
made their
with it.
own or anything.
So
they smoke shit.
It was
I'm sure.
illegal in America at that time to give an Indian alcohol. Fucking crazy. Anyway, he waited till they were camping out, drinking whiskey and stuff. You know, waiting for dawn. Or is it daybreak? Whatever.
Same thing.
I was like,
waiting for the sun to come up to, waiting for the sun to come up to continue, so they can go trade. He gets so close to this tribe and they don't even see him. But he waits for the sentry, which is the scout. You know, going back and forth because there's always a sentry walking around the camp, right? He waits for the sentry to come walking back. JJ is off his horse and everything. His horse is about a mile back. He kind of footed over there. And he pulls out his rifle and he's like, fuck, it's going to make too much noise. All right. And he pulls out his big ass Bowie knife, the one you saw in the picture. He's like,
that's where you got the David Bowie thing.
yeah. And he's like, fuck, this is going to make too much noise. Then the sentry walks right by him, doesn't even see him. He picks up this stone that is referred to in the Crow Killer book as a small pumpkin-sized stone. And he waits till the Crow Indian sentry walks a little bit past. And now all the other Indians are hooting, hollering. Woo-hoo-hoo-hoo! They have none the wiser that this is going on. JJ takes that stone and blow, throws it right in the back of that sentry's head.
Like a shot put.
That brave's head, shot put right in the back. Boom! Knocks him unconscious.
Wow, you know what, guys? We didn't carve pumpkins this year.
Yeah, I know.
I know.
Some half hour later, his horse saddled and ready for the trail, Johnston bent over the unconscious warrior. He seized the greased scalp lock, ran the point of his bow around its base, placed his moccasined foot on the victim's head, and snapped off the scalp. Oh. Observing that a tremor ran through the brave's body, he swiftly swept his blade across his throat.
He is unconscious, but he scalps him first. Now, I'm going to talk about this a little later, but here's how you scalp someone, Jen, because you can't just be like carving, you know, like you're carving a pumpkin, okay? You push him on the ground. Now, this brave is unconscious. He's on the ground. He picks up his hair, you know, he's got long Indian hair, and he makes, with his Bowie knife, a circle, kind of cutting in, trying to make a good circle. And you got to lift the hair up a little bit because you got to get around the back, you know, and you kind of just make that full circle. But now it just doesn't just pop off like, you know. So what you do is you lay the brave, the Indian, the victim or whatever, on the side, on his like left side. Then you put your left foot, you stamp it right down on his like side of his head, his temple, right? And then you take the hair and you just kind of wedge it back, like, and it makes this kind of like ripping sound as it rips off. And then it comes off slowly and there's that slimy blood still sticking there. And then you get the scalp. Now, you want to immediately, if it's daytime especially, you want to turn the scalp over because you're going to carry it with you. You're going to put it on your belt, but you want it kind of
You want
faced
to
up.
dry the stuff.
You want it dried, so you want the blood side to be up towards the sun. So keep that in mind, Jen, next time you scalp someone. So that's what he did. Now, he cut this guy's throat. Now, this guy's dead. All the other Indians are whooping and hollering, whoop, 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 whoop. They have none the wiser. They don't know this guy's dead. He looks down. This brave is wearing a rawhide belt, and he's got a scalp on there. And he looks at it. It looks like a white woman's scalp. He pulls it off. But wait, it's got this long black hair. It's the scalp of the swan. The first crow he killed is the exact crow, in coincidence, that killed his wife. All right.
Whoa.
Wow.
At that
How
The
did he know?
first one.
That's good for him.
You would think that would stop the rest of his killing, but apparently 300 to 400
Now,
more.
I told you this was a story about liver eating Johnston.
But
this is actually the
How
turning
did he know
point.
it was hers?
I didn't want to say this, but, you know, we're talking about liver eating Johnson, but he didn't care about eating livers and anything else. He was just going to kill all these crows. But this is the turning point where he is just lost his fucking mind, what the Indians would say. He just went crazy because he just saw the swan's scalp. Then he just fucking goes crazy and just cuts right into that brave and just slits him open. And then he just eats the liver, probably out of just a rampage type of thing. He knows how much the liver means to these people. And that's when he kind of went crazy, if you will. Most of the Indians will say that eating the liver was toxic and it made him even more crazy, which is why he killed all these other Indians. I want to say it's very important that the Crow Indians were embarrassed that he killed so many of them. You understand why? Because one guy is killing all your fucking people and they're eating their livers. That's fucking crazy.
But a second glance told Johnston that the trophy had not been torn from the head of a white woman. He ran his fingers through the coarse black tresses. As he looked closer, something familiar caught his experienced eye, and in that instant, in the clear light of dawn, the liver eater knew certainly that in this, the beginning of his greatest effort against his enemies, he had met and killed the murderer of his wife.
Yeah, so here, read this, Nicole. This is why I said that this was the first liver he consumed, because he saw his love of his life, the swan, her scalp, and he just went crazy.
Drawing his bowie knife from its sheath, the liver eater stooped quickly and made a deep incision beneath the slain foe's ribs. Inserting his hand, he felt for a liver, grasped it, and wrenched it free. Expertly, he ran his thumb and forefinger along the blade of his knife and replaced it in its sheath. Blood dripped from its beard as he rode away to the northwest, skirting the ravine.
What he does, he takes the scalp, he eats the liver, and then he rustles up all the horses. Because remember, there's 50 Crow Indians, there's 50 horses. So he rustles up a bunch of rocks and just spooks the horses. And the horses, nay, nay. And they all start spreading out. And then JJ lets out a whelp, like, woo! The Indians get scared and they all start scattering because their horses go everywhere. He basically kills this one guy, cuts his neck, and scatters the horses. Now, these Crow Indians are running around trying to capture all these horses. It's like 2 a.m, okay? That gives him a chance to get away because they're going to see that dead body, and they're going to see the liver out of him. They ain't going to find the liver because it's digesting in Johnston's stomach. Now, that gives him time to get away on his horse. Not only that, he knows that they're going to see the Flatheads. He bypasses them, because they're all trying to get their horses back, figure out what's going on. He's about a day ahead of them now. He winds up at the Flatheads, and he rolls in there like a motherfucking hoss. And they all love and know him. He's wearing the Crow garb. You saw when you said the wolf was on his head, that's the Crow, that's the Flathead garb. He's wearing that. He goes straight to the sub-chief, and he says, look at this. And he shows them the scalp. And entangles it with the Crow scalp. And he gives it to the chief. That was kind of the language. Because if he just gave the scalp of the Flathead, he'd be like, what the fuck? Why'd you kill my daughter? Why'd you kill your wife? But he entangled it with the hair of the Crow scalp.
So that they knew
they knew
that the Crow killed her. Okay.
Exactly.
And then he killed the Crow.
Exactly.
Okay.
So now the whole Flathead tribe has prepared for war. Now, I was reading a little bit into it. The Crows were very vicious. So think of the Crows as like the Spartans, right? So 50 Crows could kill probably 300 Flathead Indians. They had to get an entire tribe to prepare for this battle.
There are 50. 49 come to trade tomorrow, said the Crow killer. The old chief's voice came like the soughing of the wind in the late autumn. My warriors will be ready. We will trade death. We will count coup on these Crows. The two arose from the buffalo robe.
I told you, it's fucking hard, dude.
The Pianek Absaroka, they call you, my son, said Bear's Head. You have already avenged my daughter. My warriors will do so for me. He clasped his own 2 hands together in gesture of parting.
All right, so guys, let's finish this up. Just remember, a lot of it is not documented because there was no one to document it. But what was documented was all the crow scalps that he brought to market. The first 20 crow scalps, history is pretty much lost. JJ actually never discussed his strategy before he died in killing these crows. But like the first one, he would get them one by one, ambush or whatever. Now, he has killed 4 or 5 at one time. Remember, he has a rifle, but it's one of those gunpowder and ball and load type of rifles, you know what I'm saying? So you gotta, it's not like you got 20 shells up in that bitch. You gotta reload it every time. Okay. So we're wrapping this up. I didn't know this was going to be this long. But I do want to point out some few things. On February 24th, 1864, the Army actually begged him to join, during his trapping and stuff like that, so he could fight because he was such an experienced woodsman. And he did, and he stayed about a year in the Army. That's why he was buried, or that's why he died actually in the Veterans Hospital. Okay. Now, I want to talk a little bit real quick about his mentor, John Hatcher, was the one that kind of taught him how to be so ruthless, if you will. And this is actually from the book Crow Killer and from the words of Hatcher before he died. He talked about the bear attack that almost killed him, not JJ, but Hatcher. Now, Hatcher was the mentor, keep that in mind. But there was a huge grizzly bear, they called it Grizz in the book, and they were trying to get the fur. But the grizzly bear had cubs, and she was pissed. She was running right at Hatcher, the mentor of JJ. Hatcher takes that rifle and does the ball and gunpowder, shoots it, pow! But it just pissed the grizzly off. Then he actually has time to do it again, shoots it again, and pisses the grizzly off. Now, this is what makes JJ so fucking ruthless, if you will. JJ runs in between right where the bear is about to maul his mentor Hatcher to death. Literally, tear his head wide open, blood spurting everywhere.
Ugh.
About 5 feet away, JJ jumps in. At this point, JJ is in between the bear and Hatcher. The bear takes his mighty paw and goes for that first swing. And it almost hits JJ by an inch, but he ducks. And I can just picture this shit in slow motion. He ducks. The paw goes right over his head, probably cuts a little bit of that red hair off. And in slow motion, he's squatted down and he grabs that Bowie knife. And he comes back up and he sticks that knife right in the bear's heart.
Whoa.
Exactly.
Hatcher credited Johnston with the presence of mind. Smart trick, said the old trapper as Johnston drew him in the tree. Leave the blade in the
Bar.
Leave the blade in the bar of the bleeding side.
And that barrel bleeding
in the
side.
barrel, sorry. In the barrel bleeding side.
So the whole story, guys, is I want you to know that John Johnston was a literal badass.
Yeah.
And no one has ever heard of this story. In fact, it's so fucking crazy that they haven't. Now, he actually died he actually died twice, if you will. I found a newspaper article. It was very fucking crazy. From like 1864, it was an obituary for him, but he wasn't dead yet. I haven't really researched why they put out an obituary for him, but it was just like a false thing. I don't know. There was a huge mess up or something. But his health did start to fail in 1895, and he actually died of just being naturally old. And after he killed all these Indians and stuff like that. Now, eventually, he did go back and make ties with the Crow Indians and basically said, hey, because at this point, it's a new generation of the Crows and stuff like that. And they all thought he was the boogeyman. And he actually went back and said, I'm taking down my vengeance. I'm getting older and stuff like that. So they kind of did settle it.
Sorry, I killed all your friends.
Yeah.
My bad.
According to the Veterans Administration record, John, also known as John Johnston, entered the Veterans Hospital in December. 1 month later, to the day on January 21st, 1990, he died. What do you guys think about John Johnston?
Wow.
I mean, the number, it's quite the romantic revenge story, honestly.
Yeah, like this is one of the stories where I was like not that mad at the killer, but like also it's kind of excessive to like kill
vigilante justice.
Yeah. Just it's a little excessive,
Just a smidge.
a lot of the historians don't believe any of these accounts.
Oh, kind of like urban legend type of thing?
Urban legend, and because you have people like, I can't want to say David Bowie. David Boone.
Davy Crockett.
You have people like
Davy Crockett.
David Crockett. Daniel Boone. All these people. Well, not Daniel Boone per se, but Buffalo Bill, I know, was one. They would actually go and do these shows. And actually, John Johnston did travel and tell of his, adventures and getting money from, people that pay. So he did probably exaggerate some stuff, like when he said he killed 1,300 people, 1,300 Indians. But historians actually claim that he's only killed 300 to 400, which is fucking crazy in itself. Unfortunately, a lot of the stories just aren't there because they were never recorded. But I hope you guys got a sense of how he would kill.
Yeah.
I think I did a pretty good justice there. But I don't know. That's my liver eating story. You guys wanted to do a cannibal story.
Hell
I really
yeah.
didn't want to do too gruesome. I kind of wanted to, relax a little bit on that. And I hope you guys enjoyed this. If you've enjoyed this episode, be sure to hit that subscribe button on whatever podcasting app you use. If you like this story, you can follow us on social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. If you're absolutely obsessed with this podcast and want to become our beaver, go to talkmurder.com/join. Become a Tacos Primo. Get a badass t-shirt, sticker, swag, a lot of love. Shout it out all over the place. Tell me what story you want me to do. I'll research it, dedicate it to you on Talk Murder Me podcast. My name is John here with Jen and Nicole. Until next time.
Beaver, I just met her.